kind of teased some topics in a couple of the channels
Mhm.
about damage info and things like that. I can kind of talk about what I'm working on. And like what does the game do today? Like the public release, what's it doing right now? And what am I talking about changing? Today there are already what's called damage profiles.
Mhm.
So a weapon has a damage profile, and there's some baked in ones in the game. Concussive, piercing, electrical, radiation. So some generic,
Yes.
almost like D&D style, RPG style attack methods,
Mhm.
right? General concepts. And those different ones are considered profiles. Each profile has a different set of parameters on what damage does when it hits something.
Mhm.
Electrical does more damage to shields or energy-based items, so on and so forth. So they all kind of have those broken out profiles. So all of that was there today, but it wasn't moddable.
Sure.
Wasn't quite hard coded, but you couldn't change it, not really.
Yeah.
So we've been having a bunch of other discussions. We spent 5 days at MagFest beating the crap out of Horizons with not only the LARP stuff, but with just regular Horizons running. And I had a massively awesome week of bug fixes right after MagFest. Like,
Hell yeah.
amazing week. And still got a couple things to deal with from that list.
If it's
but
vulnerable,
I'm down
it
to
can
minor
be, like,
stuff.
hooked. I remember.
Been working heavily on the drones for the LARP experience and for the Israel group.
Pain. Okay.
And I've got it to where multiple drones can be
this
launched
is
from a new screen called the flight deck. And the drones run exclusively in the browser.
Okay.
And so you can assign, unassign, and they just get like a little garage door, like they've been docked. Right now, it's cheesy, but it works fine for now. So I've been working on all that. But this damage profile thing, I had a pretty massive epiphany when we were talking about it. And Jazzy's not on with us. He's a late nighter usually.
Yeah.
But he figured out what my epiphany was, and he kind of stole my thunder because I was going to talk to him about it last night, and he started chatting. Oh, you could do this, and you could do that, and you could do this, and I was like,
You're like, yeah, I know.
like stop reading my mind. So the idea is this at its simplest form. There's two constructs. There's I haven't officially named it yet. It originally in the old code it was called damage profiles. That name is going to go away because it's not a damage profile. It's really traits of what a particular it's traits like concussive, piercing, right? Like, so you can assign one or more to this profile. So in that profile you have these traits. So there's different things I kind of mentioned, right? They are definable in the engine just like everything else is. So so people can mod and create a whole bunch of different more, so they can be new technologies or MacGuffin style traits that they want to use. And here's the methodology. That trait, why I'm not calling it damage profile anymore, is welcome Division by Zero.
Hello.
So the traits will be used in both directions.
Okay.
So right now, you really only today the damage profile on those traits, basically how do you apply damage to something?
Yeah.
Right? To shields, to hull, to crew, to components. All of that's there today. But as we modify this to be fully moddable, what's going to happen is those traits essentially are modifiers. So if I have a weapon like a laser-based weapon that does 100 points of damage when it hits, just using that as an example, then these traits, all they're doing is two things. One is they have essentially a factor, and that factor is essentially a rating. So a rating of 1 is it's 1 times, right? 0.5 is 50%, so that's like a reduction.
Sure.
And then 2 is 2 times whatever that damage rating is, right? So that's going in. On the flip side, the same traits can be used, but the profile on the other side is a defensive profile in nature. So if I get 100 points coming in and I've got something and this 100 points is concussive, right? And that's the trait that we're talking about. That's coming in, but then the particular hull on this ship has a rating of concussive defense of 0.5, meaning it reduces that 100 points by 0.5, so it's 50 instead of 100.
Yeah,
Okay,
it definitely adds for some interesting gameplay where
combination,
you
right?
yes, yeah, where oh, the storyline, like, we're going into a system that heavily does radiation damage. You wanna put on items that are radiation blocking. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, and you're right. You're right on topic. So, the idea is, though, is how this system works is if you remove all traits, then it just does 100% of the damage, and you're
Mhm.
done. So, lack of traits is not a detriment. So,
Yeah.
new content can come in, create new traits, do whatever they want. Modders can create traits for their universes. And if something doesn't happen to have a trait defensively or offensively, it's just going to do 100% of whatever damage delivered, and Bob's your uncle, and you're done,
Yeah.
which is nice and clean. It doesn't cause any breakage of modeling as you go down the tree. Um, so here's the other thing I was going to talk about, though. So in general terms, what I described makes again, it's what we do today. It makes sense, but you can apply it in both directions. Um,
Yeah.
so there will be now, when you on a vessel class, there will be a hull type. That hull
Okay.
type is definable, and there will be a list of hull types, and you can define the different hull types. And those hull
Mm.
types will have these traits I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool from, like, the matter of honor aspect, right? Where everybody was kind of like, "Hey, how can we do this specialized radiation damage? How can we simulate that?" For sure.
Right. So the bottom line is that the way damage has always been applied shield, hull, interior. Right.
Mhm.
That's still going to be true, but now it's going to go shield modifiers, hull modifiers, interior modifiers.
Nice.
So you might have shields that don't do good with radiation, but your hull has good radiation defense, right?
Mhm.
Um, and like you said, you can have different. And in my head, my brain goes to BattleTech, where you had ferrofibrous armor, reactive armor, all those kinds of things. Inner
Yeah.
sphere versus clan armor, so on and so forth. It just opens that whole world up, and the whole point is it's using the same modeling system for damage and defense, and it makes that really clean. Now, let's take this a step further. So, particularly, defense will always be essentially modifiers. Like all it's doing is the defensive rating is modifying what's coming at it, right?
Mhm.
So, on the offensive side, however, because that's the one delivering said, whether it's an attack or whatever, that's what's doing the delivery, right?
Mhm.
Um, the and they won't be called traits in the end. I'll have something. I've got a few names I'm batting around, but I'm going to call them traits for this discussion.
Sure.
The traits in the offensive profile, sorry, let me back up. When you define a trait, like so, you'll define these list of traits in the engine, independent of any of these profiles. Like
Sure.
here's
Okay.
my 15 different traits: concussive, piercing, yada yada yada, right down the
Mhm.
list. Okay, but when you define them, you define um, their core type and what that in simplest form. I'm not going to go into extreme detail because I've got a list I've already built. Uh, is are you applying damage? Are you applying healing?
Mm.
Right?
Mhm.
Are you infecting? Are
Mm.
you inhibiting? Okay. There's some others that I won't talk about now, but those are like the core. So the idea is, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this, is radiation is by its nature, it's infecting, right?
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
infects. Um, and so you'll define that. Then you'll define again, and these are meant to be generic. So you're defining like this trait generically, so it's not meant to be applied to any individual thing or ship.
Mhm.
So you'll define that. Then you'll define does it have a growth rate?
Oh, so
Okay.
do you envision being able to, for example, put like the inhibiting? I'm assuming you mean like inhibiting movement on asteroid objects.
Well, inhibiting FTL, inhibiting
Mhm.
comms, like a jamming,
Mhm. Oh, that'd be
inhibiting
handy.
sensors jamming. So this model is going to work for just saying damage is incredibly short-sighted in what I'm going to be
Yeah.
doing with it. So yeah, the idea is you can create, so a person can create a module and create a component that they put on the ship, and that component by its nature will have a range effect, or
Mhm.
it can be defined with a range. And then if it has traits that are with inhibit, then basically you're creating an area of effect to inhibit something. Like like if we're going to talk Star Wars, an interdictor class Star Destroyer that pops in and suddenly I can't go to flight speed now because I've got to get a certain distance away from that ship before I can. And this also applies area of effect. It will include nebulas, and I know nebulas is stuff we've talked about, but nobody's seen in game yet. But you can apply the same traits to a nebula, aka radiation. So what the game engine will do is when I'm applying these things, and there's two types. There's impact based, which is a traditional weapon effect, right? There's area of effect, which exists today, but only really with missile and ship detonation. Like there's a blossoming effect there. So that's those two. But the third one will be essentially where it'll constantly check area of effect for items that are inhibitors or infectors that have an area. So in other words, why that's important is, let's say my shields aren't good against radiation. My hull isn't great. The radiation hits the hull. It has a growth rate that I mentioned. That growth rate will increase over time, infecting more of the hull. The growth rate is not stacking.
Okay.
What I mean by that is, let's say I hit 100. I do 100 points of damage to the hull, and it's radioactive by nature, and it has a growth rate of 1 point per second.
Okay.
It will essentially take off 1 point of hull per second. So it won't be 101, 102, 103, and it keeps,
I heal for this?
algorithmically taking out that much. It's just going to take off whatever it keeps going at. So it's basically going to take away. Now, this property can be applied to basically going to take away any object in game. So that's planets, can be applied asteroids, any object when they pop their head up, ships, of course.
Do you plan on being able to stack some of this stuff on the modular shield system?
In terms of like forward back
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, and this also can infect NPCs. Then we start drifting into the medical stuff, right? So we start, finally
giving medical something to do. Yes.
So medical doesn't exist yet, at least in the Horizons model.
Yeah.
But what you're hearing is when you define these sets of traits that then you apply to damage, defense, what have you, is you're defining a universal standard for how things affect each other. Okay. And on the trait, I mentioned growth. There's also radius multiplier. So you're not setting the radius, you're setting a multiplier. So if you set the radius to say 100, but on the core trait it's a multiplier of 2, it would be 200, because you're just saying that this has a really strong effect. And then the last one is, I have it generically right now set as, is it physical or not? Meaning is it, if it's traveling here, if it hits a physical object, will it stop, right? Or apply damage. If it's not physical, like radiation, right, it has the potential to go through said object. So I may tweak that more to be more than just an on-off. That's still evolving, but I've already thought about that process, about radiation going, like if I have my shields down and my hull doesn't do anything with the radiation, it's not hitting the hull. It's not damaging the hull, but it's going through the hull and affecting the crew inside the ship. So I'm thinking on all those terms. And it opens up, it goes well beyond damage, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And the fact that you'll be able to create combinations to do different things. And like you were alluding to it, people can create their own universes, their own weapon types. And are we streaming, by the way, Dag? Just making sure, because we're into good territory here. But when they me too. I had to do it earlier too. So that methodology will permeate through everything. Again, not just his damage, but also his defense. And then you start having components that can affect other components, like the inhibit property. Um, and it's pretty exciting. I am about 80% of the way through recoding this construct. I've got it functioning for the damage model. That's already functioning because it was already there in this form. I'm just, I had to recode it for the dynamic objects rather than the rigid ones I'd created. What I'm working on now is that area of effect stuff, where, like the inhibitor for FTL, for example.
Yeah.
And I have not finalized what designates. I have some models in place that I'm working through that I'm testing. So but in other words, how do I cleanly say that this inhibits this attribute I'm calling FTL and inhibit, right? Faster than light inhibit as my attribute that I put on this component that I install on a ship. Now I can inhibit up to 1,000 kilometers away from me, right? As an example. How do I cleanly let a modder define not only that, but then what is it actually affecting on the other ship without me hard coding something? Is it strictly the component type? Is it a property on the component that identifies it as the target? Because I'm conscious of not focusing in on just. I don't necessarily want to focus in on just a component type like power or FTL, etc. Because I think it's important that you may have multiple components on a ship of the same type, and it needs to be able to be generic in nature to whatever you're impacting impacts all of them.
Yeah.
So that's my big thing that I've been working on really since Sunday through today has been where I've been hardcore on, and I'm really excited where it's going to be. I went full Charlie Day on my whiteboard over here it came to me Sunday night when I was getting ready to leave to go home. It popped into my head then, so I had to write down all my notes to make sure that I wasn't going to forget the core pieces of this. And then Monday morning I just went, and then I slept on it and didn't sleep much, and then came in Monday morning and just went crazy coding on it. But yeah, so like the actual damage model doesn't actually change in terms of what the game sees today. It's just going to allow for so much flexibility
behind the scenes. Yeah.
Well, but not only behind the scenes, but even in the core, Hemacast, who's on with us now, is kind of leading a charge to really kind of look at the taxonomy of ships that we have, right? The different classifications, the different ratings for hard points. How does that scale? What does that look like? And really start to fine tune that, because I've never really done play balancing with the ships that are in the game. I mean, there are some core types that are different levels, but we need to go ahead and we're at a point where we can start really getting fine tuning that, not only for the playability aspect, but also for just the depth in game, and having different manufacturers for different types. That some are more reliable than others. These are really strong and really great, but are slow. These are fast and break easy.
Yeah, adding that depth of lore to the ships for sure.
Yes. What will do wonders for just again the depth. It doesn't change anything mechanically. It just helps with the depth, and it helps tactically too. Because when you have those different levels, it makes a difference in how you go into fights. And with this whole topic in mind, I've already started it with. I had it in place for Mac. This is not in a public build. I'm trying to get 29 out the door. The only thing holding 29 back right now is I'm finishing the damage model. This topic, so it's at least fully functional in its current form. I won't have the UI editors done for it yet, but the new format will work as it did before. Mechanically, it'll work as it did before and be fully playable as is, so that I can get 29 at the door, because there's so much in 29. So much in terms of fixes and just updates. I've got a few that some of the team found, like with one of the missions. I got to look at that. But what else? Oh yeah, the WebGL editor is not editor. The viewer has come along quite a ways. I've finally gotten the UI in there, so it has targeting reticles and directional arrows built into the GUI now. Yeah, and it makes a huge difference. Um, I would say, and all that's really missing from the WebGL version to be at least on par now with the what I've been calling the classic renderer, which is
Mhm.
appropriate, is explosions and FTL, or sorry, and then engine trails, which includes missiles. But the the just the particle effects for that.
Yeah.
Um, and so once I get those in, I'll have everything that's in the classic renderer in the WebGL render, and then I can just keep. And it's not even optimized. It's not even close to optimized. I mean, it's pretty. It's my first attempt at a clay ashtray in shop class, and it looks pretty rough. But it's 60 frames per second on a 9-year-old video card. So
Yeah.
and it's only going to get better with the performance as I keep improving that. That's what's really cool.
Yeah, it definitely opens up the convention fleet to wider and wider Chromebooks and touch devices that don't have to be hefty, so it's nice.
Oh, and on that note, by the way, the Chrome bases, which I've for many of the chats, I had one back here that I'll
Mhm.
probably put back up. Um, we had a full the deluxe bridge that pictures have been shared of that we ran the LARP on was running those Chrome bases, and they ran fantastically.
Ooh, good to
I,
know.
in fact, I think we had less issues with those than we did with the Windows Acers. Now, the Windows Acers we had though, it wasn't, to be fair, they're older. They're like 6 or 7 years old,
Mhm.
and we're starting to have issues with the Ethernet ports because people.
Ah,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, some of it's just I think if we crack them open, I think we can just secure the like I know one of them, the entire daughter card on the side, the whole thing is loose. Um, but they all have Wi-Fi though, and we had resisted Wi-Fi in the past because like when we started this, again, we started doing conventions in 2013
Mhm.
with a very early build. Wireless was not, you did not have a lot of the quality mini routers that you have now.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so we're going to revisit that between Jim and Rebecca. We kind of battle planned that they're going to be building a bridge, and we talked about it. So we will, and Heatmiser actually picked one up. They're like these little, tiny little Wi-Fi unit routers that are just literally like that big that we can stick in the bridge box, and then we're gonna next convention we'll have the cables with us if we need them, but we'll try just running straight Wi-Fi because wireless, as long as it's localized like that, it won't be an issue. Not for the
Yeah.
packet rates we're doing. So yeah. Well, and also hide the SSID so nothing can target it.
Yeah.
Always important. And by the way, Shakalaki, welcome. I saw you pop in. Just wanted to say hi. Um, and it's good stuff. Let's see what else.
Yeah,
I
apparently I need to disappear more often.
oh, since you were last like regular, which was
Mhm.
before the holidays, I think it's been a bit.
Yeah. I was like, it was probably, like, Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been busy. I've
Yeah.
um. Well, there's also like you probably haven't seen the and this is for the LARP version. It's in
Mhm.
the dev, like you've got the dev branch, so
Yeah, I haven't updated recently,
uh,
though.
but it's well, fine. Um, but it's the LARP screens there. There's the flight deck, which is where you can assign a drone to one of the drone screens, and the drone screens are you can have right now. I've got it set to 2. Um, there's no hard limit to that though. But there's also the quartermaster screen, which we used at MagFest for the LARP experience, where we had the for those of you that I kind of show these off every week, but we had like the officer the
It is. You need to activate the LARP module.
yeah, there's a module called Horizons LARP. Refresh your screen. They're there. Um,
Yeah, I saw you posting about them on Facebook, and they looked super cool.
yeah, yeah. Well, and then but everybody got like a set of the 10,
Mhm.
um, and um, that was as I had hoped. And you, as a skilled True Dungeon player, know that that's like there's a part of that where it's just like the cool factor.
Yeah, treasure is always awesome.
Yeah. And so that went really well. We did 5 full LARP sessions. With every group was different, which was great. We even had the drunk group, which was so that was really fun. Lots of discussion for that later, and we have between audio and video well over 12 hours of content.
Oh,
Like Jazzy and Hemicast, between the two of them, we recorded the pre-flight briefing. Which at pre-flight they sat at a round table. We gave them their cards, and the quartermaster screen was sitting right there. And it's a loadout screen, so you see the horizons in the middle, and it has internal and external components listed. And the game master can then go click and remove components, can add components, can change them out, and do all of that live. And as they're doing it, the bridge that's sitting just past them is fully updating. So like the tactical screen will update with the right loadouts and ordnance and everything. So it's a live update.
dope.
Yeah. So and all of the mechanics that I use for the quartermaster screen, we will be. Oh, and Fred, I think you're not on mute.
Bluetooth mode.
Oh, hey Fred. Oh no, he's done. Fred, you need to go on mute. There we go. He got it. He got it. Okay, he got it. It's fine. Thank you. I just don't think he realized it. But no. So anyway, they were able to, and we added. This was a new thing for this was there has always been, and nobody's noticed it that I'm aware of. There's always been a middle hardpoint that's never been occupied. Not a very, very, very long time.
Middle hardpoint.
A forward middle hardpoint. It used to be referred to as photon, generically. But it was empty. There was nothing installed in it on the horizons ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I basically made a new weapon that is in the dev build. It'll be in the listing. It's not on the horizons natively, but it's a railgun
Oh.
that you can install in the middle. And as soon as you do that, a third weapon group pops up on the tactical screen, and it's not an auto fire. They literally have to target, and it's only a 20-degree arc. So you have to basically, the flight has to really center on there, and they can fire. And it's a good, if it hits, it's dirt slow, but if it hits, it does a lot of damage, and it's got a really good range. And we updated the range rings, which we need to do some stuff for the colorblind effect.
Sure.
But each weapon group that has a different range now has a different color, and the color is represented in real time on the tactical screen.
Perfect, because I know we were having issues with that with the Matter of Honor weapons group testing, so that'd be dope.
That's
I did
all.
see somebody else in chat was having that same bug issue I had with custom weapons on custom hardpoints. Have you seen any more on that, or are we really the only two who are kind of seeing it?
I fixed a bunch of stuff in the last but I remember looking at something about that, but I don't.
Yeah.
Somebody tagged me into it.
Building my Star Trek weapons, I haven't had a problem onto custom hardpoints just yet. But
how many weapons are you loading per ship?
4 to 5 generally at the moment.
I was primarily seeing it when I had like a lot more than that. Like a lot more, because the ship I was building uses the weapons groups feature, and I was attempting to fire the weapons groups, and essentially nothing would happen, or you'd have like a 1-degree window where you could get them to fire, and I thought it was due to the hardpoint angles, but we couldn't really figure out the issue.
I'd be curious to see if that still exists in the dev version today.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have time, beat that up. I'm curious because a couple things. Not just that, but there is a new. There have always been arcs in the game, like the weapon arcs have always been there, but they've been generically 40 degrees, and not 40 degrees total, 40 degrees, and so it's 80 all in all. But basically, the way the rating went before, it's like from center. What's my ratio? So 40 means I can go 40 this way or 40 that way. right?
Sure.
That's what it had been previously. Now, and it's not in the editor yet, but it's all baked in. It was there before MagFest. It's now a 4-number rating. So you define, instead of it just 40 degrees like this, it's how many degrees left can I go, how many degrees right can I go, how many degrees up, and how many degrees down. Okay. And what's cool though, and so that way you can, if you have a weapon that's kind of discreetly on the side where it can't go right, but it can go 180 degrees left, where its default position is forward, then you can define that kind of level of detail. But what's cool is you define the weapon arc on the hardpoint. Like here's how far that hardpoint can rotate something that's installed on it. But the weapon itself also has an arc. Now, most weapons that are rotatable will probably have a 360. Like you'll just set it at 360 degrees, meaning if I'm on top of something, I can rotate all the way around, no problem, right? So that is most likely. However, the engine will pick the more for each of the 4 numbers. It'll look at compare each the weapon and the hardpoint, and whichever one is least, it'll take that. So it'll restrict the arc based on both combined. And that's all in place underneath. I just have to expose the arc field on the editor, and you'll be able to edit to your heart's content to make it really clean. Most weapons, I think, like when I started making this change with Pulse, like I set them all to 360 degree. So in other words, it's basically the hard point. It will be the restrictor, not the weapon itself. If that
and that's kind of what I figured, just based on the weirdness I was seeing was something to do with the hard point and how it was rotated or the radius or whatnot. So yeah, I'll give it another shot and see if it's changed.
Yeah, all that kind of took place right before MagFest. So like the turn of the turn of the year, and right before the first week of January was when it all went down. So if you haven't messed with it since then, I'd be curious to see how it is now.
Yeah, I'll have to retest because it's been a while.
And then gosh, guys, I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to remember now. It's been a lot.
Oh, that's something I noticed very recently. Activating or deactivating a module, you have to completely restart Horizons now for Horizons to recognize it.
When you say recognize it, do you mean show the screens on the...
Show the screens on the station, and if you have like missions, for it to show up in the mission list.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do know, and I want to change how this works, but I do know the screen, the selection screen, like the startup screen, unless you refresh it, it caches that. Your browser caches that. I know, but I mean, I can make that stop. But I know that what that one's doing. The mission list, I'll have to see.
Yeah, there's something with the current build that activating a module, it doesn't reprocess it.
Alrighty then. Yeah, it was working great, so I'll have to say, obviously I broke something somewhere. Yeah.
No, he broke it after we got back from MagFest. Actually, I know that for a fact because at MagFest we were able to turn on and off the Hunt for the Blue November on the Deluxe Bridge.
Yeah, at MagFest. Something like that. So let me see. I'm going to actually turn off the LARP. Okay. Refresh the screen.
Real live debugging.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so that's back and it's gone. Let me turn on. Oh, actually, I can go look at the missions too. Okay, there is that. Good. Okay, so that's missing like it should be. Let's turn the LARP back on. Go to missions. Aha! Yeah, the mission list definitely went buggy on me. That's absolutely true. Let's look at the screen like you guys were saying. Let's take a look at that. So the screens pop back in on the selection screen, but the mission list is absolutely foobar. Okay, yeah, I'm actually gonna try it right now. Because if I can get anytime I can reproduce something, I can, anything you can reproduce, you can fix. That's the hardest bugs are the ones you can't reproduce. That's what drives you crazy. And that's where you lose hair. You can tell I've done a lot of coding.
Lol. I was about to comment on that joke there, Dave.
All right. Let's see. Okay. And let's take one look here. I could share my screen, but this is going to go quick enough where it's not that cool of a demo.
Yep.
Okay, LARP screens are missing. I started Horizons without the LARP turned on. Turning on the LARP. Going to the mission list. Yeah, that's definitely foobar. Okay, yeah, that's missing. So let's now go look at... Dum dum dum. Yeah, the screens are popping in on that even after startup. It's definitely, the mission list is definitely wrong though. So I got to fix that. I will make a note. I'm going to put that in Jira right now.
Now everyone knows how the sausage is made.
Yeah, Dave, but how many story points is that bug fix going to be?
Well, what t-shirt size? On labeling a module. All right. Fine, I got to put more stuff in my list. That's how it works. Okay. All right, that's all done. So, I love it when a plan comes together. So yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I've been battling here. That you haven't really. Oh well, the Game Master screen has gotten a few upgrades. And I mentioned this. I'll do a show and tell with this one. Let's have some fun with this one. Let's see here. Let me go into a mission first and get that running, and then. I will share my screen and we can take a look at that. And by the way, some folks, regulars, are talking. If anybody has questions or just curiosities, feel free to jump in. Don't be shy. We'll only yell at you if we don't like it. Let me do this. Turn that off. Sorry, guys. Taking 1 second here. Okay, that's done. Game Master. We'll just go to flight testing. Perfect. Okay. So let's share this puppy and get this show on the road. Screen. We want to share screen 2. There we go. All right. Let me know when everybody can see that.
You're good.
Okay. So here we have. I went into my playground mission, which is just sitting there. When you click on an object now, this I've totally redone the layout behind the scenes of this, so it's now flex layout. So there's no JavaScript to make everything laid out correctly and all that. It's all nice now. But you now have all of these here, but there's 2 new abilities. Invincible and Immortal. Invincible was always there as a property you could set like on an object you're creating and defining, but you couldn't, as a game master, flip it back and forth in real time. Now you can. And the difference between Invincible and Immortal is really simple. Both of them you can't die. Okay? Invincible is you can't die and you can't take any damage. You can't be touched. Immortal lets you take up to 10% of your damage, and you can't die. So it lets you take damage, lets you get hit, lets things get, so that the players still have to do stuff, but it will not let the ship die. So for LARPs and things like that, and you just click it to turn it on and it goes green. So you can tell if it's enabled or not, which is really nice. I've added some additional detail up here, so you can actually see the task, behavior, maneuver, and all that in real time. Added these indicators for levels, and the component levels will be showing up down here. I've got to finish baking that in. Spawn hasn't changed too much. Mission list, PD list, the console list hasn't changed. There is something new here, though, and that is this button on the events list pops you out a Game Master.
Perfect.
Yeah. So.
And how well does that scale?
Oh, it'll. Sorry, my screen was.
That last button is on mine.
To give you an idea how well that scales, Jazzy had about 30 events running.
Yeah.
It'll just make more and more
create
columns.
more columns.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's.
And color coordination is key.
Oh yeah, no, and that's kind of what I was worried about with all the different event triggers I was setting for Matter of Honor. Is just how can I organize them so the lay GM can figure it out pretty easily.
Right. And then of course you got in the bottom corner here is that's turning debug mode on and off instead of it being a button over here anymore. So all that's kind of baked in there, which is nice. What's going to be happening in short order is there'll be a little icon up here, like a little cog that you can click on, and then the whole middle screen will become your configuration for that object. So you can not only do what the Quartermaster screen does, which is you can replace components or remove components if you want. You'll be able to set their properties, charge levels, damage levels, etc., including the ship's integrity and all that good stuff. So you'll have live object manipulation for everything in the game, including the player. So
dope.
Yeah, and then the left side here, which has kind of been barren for a long time, will look actually closer to this top section, but more condensed. So each player will be listed here, but it'll be much more condensed. Like I'm not going to worry about this part, but you'll get these details pushed up over here and smaller versions of these so that you can have each player listed and have a good at a glance for all your live players over here. But it'll be similar.
Do you plan on popping out that players tab long term?
You mean be able to do the same thing like we did with events?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah.
That'd be handy, because then you could have that up on a separate side screen and kind of keep track of that.
Well, and that's, it's interesting you say that, because that's what, Taggart and I have talked about this a little bit, is getting to a point where, and this part's not going to happen like first quarter of this year, but like once I get past a lot of the roadmap items that I'm either already taking out or dangerously close on, a lot of which we've already talked about on this call earlier, I will get to a point where you'll be able to kind of create your own Game Master layouts and save them. So you could have Game Master Layout 1, Game Master Layout 2, Game Master Layout 3, or you're just kind of plugging in different pieces. And there's a couple other bridge sims that do that. The Thorium Classic has a good model for that. Their screen is like they've got a massive amount of information on their screen, but it's required because the Game Master does everything. You don't have like the event architecture there, but
yeah, I was definitely thinking, like from the Matter of Honor side, right, having multiple screens where you could rack and stack some of this information and also intersperse it with like webcams or different parts of the ships and being able to pull like that level in and say, okay, they've done insert, social thing here has happened, kickoff event, blah blah blah. Like having that, just kind of building your own would be super handy.
Right. And I actually snuck it in for a brief period of time, but what else is coming to the Game Master screen is in this top right corner, just above here, just like this section here, everything will get pushed down, and it'll actually be the 3D view. A 3D view window. And what I'm going to do is, it'll be the forward view, the forward camera view of whatever object you've focused on. That's different from what object you've selected. So like right now, the focus is the player, and I need to add, there will be an indicator to tell it, that explains what focus. Like right now we're focused on the player, but if I click on space dock, it shifts me over to that being the center. If I click on the container, click there, now the container's the center. And the idea being, you'll be able to see what they're seeing from the Game Master screen without having to pop out another window, which again, I could make a pop-up for that just the same, yeah.
Quick question with that. Will you be able to select something that is in a different system? Like a different planet around Sol or something like that?
You mean like, let's see, Comp Station at Viridian 3?
Yep. That'll be so much easier to watch what the Blue November's doing when it's not in the same space.
Yeah, well, you like I said, you can do that now. If you, whatever object you clicked on the right-hand side, and I do need to add some ways for it to be like more obvious, to be blunt. You know, like whatever I click, like here, this one's at Viridian 3 as well. If you click the picture, it'll shift to that being the center again, regardless of.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's been there for like a long time. But that's what I mean. I'm actually like giving myself a hard time, is that it's been there for probably a year like that. But unless you knew to click this, you didn't do it. So I need to have like a little, maybe put an eye icon to like, or a focus icon or something to that you click on instead of just clicking on the image. But like I can go back to the rising star just like that. It's in the Steam version. That feature's been there that's been there a long time. But I'm calling out that a lot of you didn't know about it, because unless you clicked it, you didn't know. So there you have it. But you can even do this. Make the planet the center. So. But I want to do the same thing. Like over here, if I click on a player, and that's probably whatever icon I put over here, I'll have with the player profiles that look similar to this that are over here, I'll have the same icon, so you can quickly shift to a player view. Just pop like that, which would be nice. So, yeah. All right. So yeah, and Nikki, I'm missing a ton of stuff that there's other stuff too that I've done that I flat out don't remember. Actually, no, I can talk about the battery system. So that's new. Let me pick on, or I got engineering open right here. Let's just use that. So the battery system, excuse me, is here. This is another one of those Dave features that I coded like in the first month of the project and never actually did anything with it. So there's always been like a battery component type from the very beginning. And I had logic, even game logic for it. But here's the deal. Is the battery charges, but it is not used, meaning the power from it is not used if there are other power sources. So it's literally acting like a battery right now. And if I turn off the ion reactor, I still have power, but you see how quickly that's draining. But if I turn off things, it'll start going down slower. I'll even turn off the FTL. Do
you foresee adding a way to say you can't power this component off a battery?
Well, that's an interesting question. Oh, and by the way, as soon as I turn it on, the battery, as configured for the Horizons, the current battery, if it's all the way to 0, takes 6 hours to charge.
Jesus. In game or like
in game?
Oh my god.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be. I'm going to be like 6 hours. Yeah, we could probably make it an hour, but that's more. I was doing that for testing, but the battery shouldn't be an exploitable thing in that way. Meaning, where you charge it up in 5 minutes and then run off of it for 20, and then charge it up for 5 and run off for 20. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, my question on.
But like when you go to battery powered, there's certain things just automatically shut off because they're not allowed to run on battery.
Yeah, like you shouldn't be able to run your engines off of battery power. Like thrusters, sure, but your main engines,
Well,
like. Go ahead.
Well,
I actually had a thought about that. I'd like to see that when the battery, like when your battery takes over for the power generation, that most systems turn off automatically. Like when your generator backup for your house comes on because your main power grid shuts off. You don't have
main house
everything running.
engine?
What? Yeah, like light supporting sensors. Everything else turns off. Yeah, sure.
Shield, you might be in an area where there's radiation and you need them to stay on. If they're
Here's a quick thought on that. How about when you're running on battery only, the ship is less detectable, or you have to be closer to it to detect it or lock onto it?
Okay, so great point you raise. That whole modeling system of detection is getting a drastic upgrade when I get to sciences. Because science, I've mentioned this in some other chats, and this is the first one we've kind of streaming. So I'll gladly kind of revisit this one for this, because I'd love for people to hear this. So the next station I'm tackling, I'm getting engineering done next, because that's the power distribution model that I'm going to be enhancing. Just a quick note about engines. What's going to be different about engines is right now, all of that stuff is drawing power, right? Okay. What will be different is the main engines that are that give your ship propulsion. If you're sitting still in space, they shouldn't be drawing any energy, because you're not actually in use, right? So the energy they use should be based on how much you're applying to it, right? Not just being on like this.
I feel like you need Brian to yell at you about naval cruisers and their nuclear reactors and how long it takes to spin up and how much power you need to keep them on, even if you're not doing anything.
Oh yeah, I know.
Maybe a bit of an idea. What if there are batteries that are powerful enough to power your main engines?
Oh well, that's where I think the sweet spot is. Frankly, is as a game designer, I don't think I care what a designer of a vessel class allows to be on or off battery. I think, to some degree, I think it's up to the players, right? It's up to how quickly do you want to drain your battery. That's really what we're talking about. And I do think it is perfectly reasonable for me to add a functionality where you can say that this device, and maybe it's as simple as critical systems. You define which are critical systems, and those by default are what stay on with batteries, and everything else shuts down. Something like that. I'm perfectly amiable to that model where you at least can say when go to battery, everything else shuts off, or outside of what you've defined. But going to what you just described about the sensor model, the entire way sciences works today is getting it won't look anything like it looks today. The radar won't even look like the other radars. It's going to have a whole different feel to it, a genuinely more scientific feel. On the right-hand side, you will have an oscilloscope that will give you different colorized readings and whatnot, and you'll get similar data that you're used to, but it's going to be on the science officer to really understand what they're looking at. And yes, there's a level of complexity to that, but what you get out of that is much deeper gameplay and much longer gameplay. It's not something where you learn how to play the station in 5 minutes and you're kind of done. And science is pretty thin today in terms of what you do. Let's be honest. I don't think anybody would argue that. So what you're going to see is the data you get back is more about true scientific scanning. The further you are away, the longer it will take to scan. The further you're away, the more unreliable your data is. And you won't get like the system scans today where it just gives you the little blob of, hey, there's a reading at this planet. You're not going to get that anymore. You're going to get directional information saying we're getting a reading from this direction. And you'll have to actually then go, okay, that correlates to maybe this planet or that planet or this system or that system, right? You're going to have to kind of work through that way. But you're getting more genuine scientific data. That's going to include planet scans too. So when you get back
So you could theoretically hide your ship behind a planet at that point.
Correct. And astral obstruction exists in the game. Oh, somebody was chiming in. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, fair enough. So yeah, the of all the stations, Sciences is going to look the most not like itself when I dive into that. It will be the last one. The next one I'm attacking with a vengeance is engineering, and that's happening. That's happening pretty soon. When I say pretty soon, I mean in the coming weeks, because with the overhaul that we just talked about at the beginning of this, with the new traits model, with the incoming offensive damage and defensive ratings and all that, that plays into what engineering's doing too. And as we change the biggest change with engineering is going to be how power consumption is managed, and I don't mean visually. I mean more components like shields, engines, and I was just mentioning that they will draw power based on their usage. So in other words, you're using less power if you're just sitting still, but if you're going full throttle, you're consuming a lot more power to do that. Okay. Today that doesn't happen. Today there's essentially a charge rate for the main engines that exists, and that charge rate is what gives you your power. But as I increase if I go from 0 to full power, my energy footprint doesn't change, and it should. And that same energy footprint in terms of what the engineer deals with also applies to that sensor model we just talked about. So I want to get engineering done so that is in place so that as I overhaul the sensor model. And the other big thing for Sciences is on the sensor model, there's 2 types of detection, passive and active. Passive data and active data. And active data, when you're actively scanning something, a ship with technology will be able to understand that they're being scanned. So that can be perceived as an aggressive tactic if they detect that. Today, they don't really the AI doesn't really look at that. They will. And so everything we've been talking about in this call in the last few weeks, you can hear where I'm like super jazzed about is all of the level of depth and notice I'm not really talking about complexity. I'm talking about depth. Like even the science station, what I'm mentioning with the oscilloscope and all that stuff. Yeah, it'll have complexity, but if I do my job right, a 5-year-old will still be able to use it and have fun, and it's not going to feel like they're, have to read a Chilton's manual to learn the thing after a few weeks. So I have to strike that delicate balance, but that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah, but some of us want a Chilton's manual.
I know. You and Brian. Speaking of which, yes, and Lee. I'm leaving Lee out. That's not fair, Lee. I gotcha. So, but notice, however, that all the stuff I am talking about allows for that kind of depth and complexity should you choose to have it. Right? The core screens of the model I'm building are going to be that middle ground, right? Not insanely complex and not arcade simple. We're going to be in the middle. But that doesn't stop someone from creating 10 engineering screens that all have different purposes and uses relative to the engineering process. Right? And having startup and shutdown sequences. And and this is Nikki. I keep coming up with stuff I've forgotten I've added. On the sensor model, Here, let me here, I'll shift back over to no, sciences actually. So the ring is now 100% accurate to the actual sensor range that you have. So if there's anything
Oh, huzzah.
Okay.
Yes.
anything outside that sensor range, you can't detect unless they are broadcasting their signal. Okay?
Is
If they're
that something
broadcasting,
comms can manage?
no, well, broadcasting, I mean more like literally broadcasting their like identity, not so much
Okay,
broadcasting
okay.
audio, right?
Okay.
Like they're broadcasting their location in a literal sense.
Like stations and whatnot do.
Yeah, right. So the idea is it's a friendly ship and they're broadcasting their location on secure channel to all friendly vessels, whatever, right? So I know that they're out there past my scan range. What you don't see today when that happens is I will be adding an indicator to denote that this is received data, not local data. Meaning, I'm relying on what they're telling me. I don't have confirmation of this.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah.
That allows for in the future. That allows for some deceptive things to take place.
It allows for space pirates, Dave. That's what you're really saying.
Yeah, right. So, but here we have and you know what? I goofed up because I got sciences over here. So let me put this back to engineering, and I'll show you why. We'll go over to sciences. And I'm going to zoom out. Okay, you see how far out my ring is there. It's pretty good ways out. Okay. So, but I come back over here to engineering, and I'm going to reduce my sensor model significantly. And my ring's all the way down here. So if I were to move out, that will, because notice 2 of these are friendlies and are broadcasting. This one is not broadcasting.
Mhm.
So there's that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put this back to normal. Okay. So that'll pop back out. But watch what it, maybe I caught it too late. Yeah, I caught it too late. Sorry. So I am going to do this, though. Let's pop over to flight. And I'm going to go, let's just go to, let's see, what systems do I want? I'll just go pick one here. We'll go over here. That's fine. We'll go to Edmund 4. We'll engage that, and we'll go back over to sciences. And I want to show you what happens. And this, I think, is a really cool gameplay tactic. Your sensor range reduces back to 0 when you enter a new system. Expands outward. Expands outward based on the component's properties. Like how quickly does it get back to 100%? So the component controls that.
What new property setting is covering that then?
The charge rate.
Okay.
And all the charge rate implies like charging energy. All the charge rates meant from a component perspective is how quickly from 0 to 100% operation how quickly does it get there? That's what charge really means at the end of the day. And so you could have components that go really good. And actually in the LARP and in the card set, there were sensors XR, which is a 40% range increase to sensors. And they had a better charge rate so that they would re-expand faster. But if you think about it, you could have sensors that are good, but they're slow. So when you get into an area, you're reacquiring signals, and maybe you pick up some bad guys, but you don't pick them up for a good 20 seconds because they're far enough out that you're reacquiring data for the system you just entered. I added that right before MagFest. That's another new thing. It does report your scan range right here. This is likely going to move. I'm probably going to get rid of this entirely, and this will move to just be data in the bottom corner. So, yeah, I told you I was busy, Nikki. I didn't lie.
No, like I said, I need to disappear more often because you get a bunch of shit done while I'm gone.
Yeah. Why does everybody keep saying that? There's no reason I couldn't. It's a real estate thing I got to figure out, though, is the honest answer. But you know what? In fairness to that point, that goes back to something that, again, Taggart and I have talked about, and Taggart is really kind of gunning for and what his vision is. is where I log into my Horizons profile and I've configured the flight screen the way I want it. You know, that's a long-term thing. I want to be clear. Like that's not happening next week. But that's absolutely something that, you should expect down the road.
But we're already working on the infrastructure to support that.
Yes,
So.
we are. Well, we say we, but let's be fair, Taggart. You're working on it. I mean,
Yes.
I've got ideas that I'm planning, but I want to give credit where credit's due. That's really been your baby.
Well, and it's still very early stage. I'm still trying to work out the technology stack for this. In fact, I'm pulling in a friend of mine who has a lot of web development experience who's helping me try to figure out the best way to do it. But yeah.
Oh, and since we're live, by the way, and I'm still sharing, let me turn on the Horizons LARP. Go back here, and it's reloading, so it's doing all that. It's loading all the screen and details and everything. Okay. It does. See, there's the LARP screens right there. So, Nikki, this is the quartermaster screen.
Fancy.
Yeah. So, I can literally hit this button to reset the loadout, which clears everybody.
Mhm.
It wipes the list, except for life support. It leaves that intact. But I can actually come in here and select, and it will, based on the weapon, the hardpoint type, filter weapon. So I can put the railgun in. And then if I come over to tactical, it's already put the main cannon slot in. And here's my different ranges. As you can see, the color coding.
Yeah, I like that.
I am gonna we're gonna do something with it, because the color coding is fine. It's like, but if you're red green colorblind in particular, it's a mess.
Sure.
So two things. One, we are gonna still keep the colors, but it's likely gonna be a pattern, like dots and solid and dashes and dot dashes, and they'll match. And then the color coding underneath here will probably move to that and be thicker, so it's more obvious. But it all works great today. So as you change things, and if I load in, say, let me go to red alert here, or yellow's fine. If I load in a wasp, the ring automatically changed in size. Just
Fancy.
yeah. Yep. There you go. So it's possible to have 4 different ranges, in which we do, right here. Now, with that art, I want to talk about the arc stuff we were talking about earlier. But let me back up a second and talk about one last thing on battery before I forget it. And that is, if I'm at a dock, if I'm docked at a starbase or space dock, something that has external power, right, and they have excess power, I can turn off my main engines and it'll automatically pull power from the dock. Okay.
Oh, okay.
There's going to be an extra tweak to that, though, which is for engineering, they'll have a new, the flag's already in game. I just got to update the UI. There'll be a new area on that left side where it will always be there, but it'll basically go from being dimmed to lit up when you're docked, where you can switch from dock power to internal power. So the engineer can actually do it, which will be kind of. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Will there be a mechanic to charge for that electricity?
Yeah, you know what? I have it. I have a note on the list for it. Do I know exactly how that's going to work? No, I don't. But there will be an option to make it part of the economy. Yes.
Cool.
Docking fees.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. In fact, actually, that's exactly what my note is docking fees ? That's exactly what it says. So, yeah. So we talked about battery, but back to we were talking about tactical. I had one other little nugget there. I'm forgetting what it is now. Oh, notice, by the way, the main cannon has a different UI model. So actually, so that'll go green if I have a target. So let's actually, oh, let me go back to, let's go back to Earth. So we can go hit something. Well, no, this isn't Long Patrol. So there's nothing at Mars. Oh no, I'm just going because I'm going to go pick on Space Dock. That's all. Yeah, why not?
It
You know,
takes a lot to blow up space dock.
it's there. Oh, and let's do this since we talked about it. There's our arrow right there. And it actually even looks better than the one in game. Most of the renderer looks better than the one in game. And then the background has actually been upgraded to be as good as the one in game. It was a little less quality before, but here we go coming around the corner as we loop around to go after poor old Space Dock. We can see where we are here. Yep, we're coming around. No, I want to revisit that mechanic. It works fine. Well, it should work fine. Let me put that out. But I want to change because I actually have if you look in the XML, there's different orbit types for standard orbit, geosynchronous orbit. Like I actually but you can't really do anything with it in the UI. So, and see here, here we are with the. Right. It might be an arithmetic issue to be fair. There could be something going on there with the math to be, because that's a big mathematically that's a big sucker. So let's see. Do we have somebody asking? Oh, okay. I was checking voice chat to see if anything. So here we are coming up on that. I'll go ahead and go to red alert so we can fire on poor things. And notice this went green, so I can fire. And I know you don't see the UI, but you can see the load time is slower, but it has a 60-kilometer range. But that's how basically true weapons that are fire on touch, that's what it looks like now. So pretty cool stuff. Oh, it's slowing down. See? Yeah, we'll have to see how it is doing now because it should behave. Let's see. Earth 1, there we go. And the rings are color coded, so that's an unknown object, so it's white. And of course, Space Dock is green. So, oh, but that's not this. But yeah, this build is quite a bit newer than because the Magfest build is from early December, I think, is when I did that release. Oh, well, I wouldn't say messed with it. I've done a lot of tweaking to it for. I've done a lot of optimizations to the engine too to try to. There's still some occasional areas where not the 3D, but the engine itself is not kind of keeping up with 60 frames a second. So, like you'll get like a pop here or there, and it's the event architecture. So I've been working on that quite a bit actually. Let's see. Yeah, we're coming up on it. Let's see if I hit it. Hmm. And on this week, watching paint dry, featuring. I know I've never seen it where it doesn't stop. See. I mean, if you turn off autopilot, it's not going to stop. That's true. Yeah. Again, that build is now at least 5 weeks old. Yeah, I've been on a tear. So yeah. Well, yeah. I fixed a lot of stuff. That's all I know. So we got a great crowd tonight. I've talked about a lot. We're at about an hour and a half in. Anybody have any other questions or thoughts, topics?
In regards to maps, has that been fixed at all where custom maps will actually load in the modules yet?
You and I need to tag team on that because you and I mentioned that I need to see what yours is doing because I've actually got custom maps and so does Jazzy that we use all the time.
Cool. All right.
So we'll just have, it might be where if you want to send me your map, I can test it locally and look at the internals to see if there's just something causing it not to load, for example. The honest answer is I don't know. You and I'll have to kind of tag team on that.
Yeah, too easy.
And I'm happy to help. We just need to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So we can, and when we do that, I can show you the other trait because and I actually did this for another group that was doing a Star Trek mod, but they kind of ended up not really pursuing it. But you can put you can set the background image of the map, and you can make it either repeating, like a texture on a web page, like a repeating texture, which is kind of what Horizons does. It has that like nebula-ish, background, or you could have a literal map that fits the size of your map, so it's a 1-to-1 scale. That for Star Trek purposes, the mod that you're doing, where you could actually have pre-drawn underneath the neutral zone, etc., etc.
That would make like correlating the coordinates of planets so much easier.
Yes, and so that way, because eventually, and it's kind of already there where when you set the faction, it kind of color codes the zones around the systems. That's fine, but I wanted to have a way where you could actually do it with the actual map and be really detailed with it. So and that works today. Like I have to tell you where to put it in the XML, but you can do that today, which is really nice.
Okay, cool.
What about like a map editor?
So there is a map like editor coming. I have 3 things I have to finish, and it's on me. I got to finish 3 things for the editor system in general. 1 is the map editor. 2 is finish the vessel class editor because it's not finished. You can do some of the things, but not all of the things you need to do in the editor. And then the 3rd is the campaign system, which architecturally already works. I have not put time into doing the UI editor so that people can create their own campaigns. I need to do that. But interestingly enough, we had a hard conversation about this at MagFest. I need to get more missions out there, just in the core game first, before I worry about campaigns. So So those are the three things that I need to finish off the editor, and then the editor as like version 1 will be in place. But there's so much more we could do with that in terms of just more nuanced and more, cooler tools, more visual tools, and drag and drop, and all sorts of cool stuff we can do with the existing editors pieces that are out there. But those are the three that we still need to finish. So, yeah, I saw you were talking to that rogue heat miser. So here, I'll unshare that so we can just talk shop. Welcome back, Taggart. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, we weren't recording before, so I'll throw this up here again for people who haven't seen it yet.
Oh yeah.
So.
Dag, drop a full screen on him on your. So he can showcase.
This was just a first time I've ever done a hat, and these caps are really cheap. So, but I'm very happy with how it's turned out so far, and I've got someone else who has some embroidery experience, and we're working out the details on how to make it look as good as possible. So,
yeah, we
next try is going to be a little bit bigger, I think.
Yeah, I think remind me, and actually I know Hemacast has one, Heat Miser has one, but the shirts that I did, it's a little larger than yours, but not much larger. And we were able to
so this is 50 millimeters if you want to pull out a ruler and compare, but and I think I can go up to 60, maybe just a little bit over 60 millimeters on this cap.
Right. And it looks similar in size. I think ours might be a little bigger, but we were it's all about how you trace the embroidery, right? So you get the stitching.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you for the chevrons on the side, if you do it so it stitches sideways rather than up and down, you'll actually be able to get really good solid.
Yeah, that's what that is. The satin stitch is the back and forth one. And so the sides are like that, and then it's filled in. There's all kinds of terminology for it, but yeah.
And considering I did costume construction in college, you think I would remember all that, but I don't. Theater major life. But no, very cool. And what type of cap? Tell people what type of cap that is, because
this is a cadet cap. It's the military style with the flat top, or flattish top. Like I said, these are very cheap. This is I just got a 3-pack off of Amazon too. Wow, very cheap. The center seam here, I just noticed, is about a 1/2 inch off of center. So, but yeah, so I just got these to test with. I've got the black one, a navy, which is almost black, and then a gray one. I'm going to try and do like a black outline on it with this one and see how that looks. But these are just to try it out, and then he gets whichever one he wants, because it was his idea.
Good stuff. So. Well, and actually, we can settle on one. I need to get more of the shirts, but the classic Horizon shirt that we use at conventions, I wish I had more, because a DAG didn't get one. And a few others didn't get one, but Reeboks doesn't make them anymore, and it sucks, because that's a great shirt, because it's an athletic shirt, so it breathes really well, and so, it's made for this kind of environment, so it's really nice, and it has a good theming. The only problem with
a nice dress for Jazzy.
New comment. Yeah, a few whistles went his way a couple times, but we're not going to talk about that. But it only came in that one. It came in blue, red, and gray. So what stinks is it would have been amazing if you could get it in all the primary colors, because then you could get. Hey, Tactical Wargamer, welcome.
Yeah, just get it in white and dye it.
Oh, touche.
Fabric
well,
dye.
they don't even make, like, they never even made white. It was blue, red, and gray. So it was like bummer.
Oh, and HEMA, you didn't get to see it at MagFest. If they had the sports bar open, that's the exact uniform they wear at the sports bar at the Gaylord, too.
We were chuckling. Although I think theirs is the red one, isn't it? I think that was... Yeah, so in the early convention days, when Fred... it was really Fred and Tim and Jim Lemaster were kind, and Fred's son Matt were kind of like the convention crew early on, like the early convention crew. And so we all had those shirts. And then a guy named Rick was doing bridge simulators, and he wanted to like really get involved and do some cool stuff.
How do I invite you to Discord?
But the funny thing was we did something kind of cool. Is they chose red, so like all of their crew when they would go to conventions, they wore the red. We wore the blue, and then they came to MagFest. Fred, do you remember this? They came to MagFest, and we went into the sports bar. So we had the red and the blue, and all the waiters came around with the red ones. And so I was like, Rick, go get me a drink, because except for the logo, you wouldn't know.
I'll have the pretzel bites and yeah.
Right. And Camper, I got your PM. I'll take a look at that on my
Cool. Yeah.
But I got it. I got it. Yeah.
I had a bunch of other questions. I forgot them all. It's too early.
And Tactical Wargamer, if you're curious, Dag Shadow posted some notes for you in the voice chat channel. So, but welcome. So I'm really happy. The great crew tonight. Lots of people. It's great to see. We will here forward stream these to Twitch. Dag's doing the one tonight. I'll get set up, so I'll have a headset on. I'll do the one next week, moving forward, and we'll get them on YouTube as well. There's no reason not to do that. Oh, you mean people always want to hear me talk? I don't know. Well, then what we need to do, Dag, is probably set it. I mean, in fairness, yeah, I have no objections, but what we'll need to do is set it up so that whoever is streaming on behalf, we get it to the Horizon. Yeah. 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 Right.
And we can also talk with Jazzy, and either he or I can send you some of the stuff that we were using when we were doing the designer chats, whatever the heck it was, when we were doing it on Friday and also
Fridays. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I will be picking your brain very, very much later about components because I've already gotten a small array for fighter-based components.
Well, and speaking of which, I'll comment on that since we're kind of talking. We talked about a lot of things tonight, but I'll cover this one. Is the Hardpoint methodology. For those of you that haven't really kind of dipped your toe into creating vessel classes or components, vessel classes have hardpoints. Those hardpoints can be restrictive, meaning only a weapon can go here, only a power source can go there, only thrusters can go here, etc. Those hardpoints each have a size rating. Okay, so the idea is only components of the same size or smaller can fit there. So in a build, in a hardpoint that's a rating of 5, a component that's a rating of 10 can't fit there. Period. So it's a way to control like what components can, like you can't put, it's like trying to put a Mercruiser 90 engine on a center console fishing boat. You know, the boat would just go like this. So it's the same concept. And just to be, it makes sense. And what Hemacast was kind of, what he's alluding to and what we're talking about is the size number has always, it hasn't been arbitrary, but it hasn't really been defined either. So we're going to come up with what that clean definition is. So, and I kind of just threw this out there. Is a rating of 1, is that something equivalent to a handgun or something is it something that small? And why I say that is there could be an argument for down the road architecturally where you could have a hard point of 1 where you're installing a camera, right? It's a small object. It's not something large. But then a hard point of, say, when you start to get a hard point of 2, 3, 4, 5, then you're drifting into the range of something that might be on a small fighter, on a drone, and then yeah.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Ema.
so the initial thought that I was having about it, and again, I don't really have anything. I've been thinking about this for less than 24 hours.
You're not done? What?
I know, right? No, I've been mulling it over for months and months, but actually thinking about it, hardpoints probably will be not a linear scale, but more of a logarithmic scale. So something that's a hardpoint of 1 is, smaller than a bread box. Something that's a hardpoint of 2 is, a in order of magnitude larger. So maybe it's not the size of a captain's seat, but a moderately sized CRT TV.
It's T-shirt sizes.
But that would allow for scalability without having the DBZ power creep where we have to have 10,000 hard points to make it planetary. It could be 40. Yeah, that's the initial thought that I have for it.
Well, what you're doing is creating essentially categories.
Yeah.
You're not really worried about it being a literal hardpoint size methodology. It's more of a category.
Yep.
Yeah.
So something in a hardpoint 1 that could fit in a hardpoint 1 size, you could mount it in a hardpoint 10, but that's kind of a waste of space, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's actually what I'm looking at with the reactors for different size crafts. You don't want to put a fighter's ion reactor in the horizons. It ain't gonna do crap.
Right.
Unless that's all you have.
It'll power your coffee maker.
Yeah.
Right, there you go.
But then but that's going to wind up leading into actually a conversation about the levels, charge, bleed, and I know that you're planning on doing a lot of stuff with that as it is. But the power, the levels do not scale properly.
Oh no, I will save that for another Tuesday.
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of thoughts on that. Oh yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to figure brain about that a lot more later.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm nodding for a reason. I actually I do think we'll probably call it at 8 o'clock, so we got about 15 minutes. Just in the interest of everybody's night. But I do want to circle back to something. Nikki, are you still with us?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know if you were multitasking. I didn't want to interrupt you if you were.
Oh, I'm always multitasking. You can never stop
Fair
multitasking
enough.
in IT.
Fair enough. Hey, I've been watching the latest episode of Ghosts while we've been doing this. What are you talking about? No, so I actually wanted to circle back on the LARP stuff because early on when I had this, when we started to get serious about this idea, I talked about it on some of these Tuesday chats. Talked about it with you as a heavily experienced True Dungeon player. We're and this is for I'm talking to Nikki, but this is for everyone to kind of hear and to discuss. But True Dungeon, for those of you who don't know, it's worth playing, by the way. But when you play, you get these kind of tokens like this, and they're different ones with different colors and different rarities, and very Magic the Gathering style rarities. But you can also trade tokens in to get rarer tokens and things like that.
You build recipes. Like, let's say you wanted to build a legendary sword, you would need to gather different types of items.
Yeah. And then Dag's kind of holding up the cards that I made I literally put together in like under a week for the test at MagFest. But so we've got those, and and Nikki, you haven't seen these. This is what they did this year at MagFest for the mag points. Again, they're using PCBs.
Yeah.
But they're still they're shaped in the shape of the Doom keys. If you know. So they kind of stuck with that methodology. So we've been looking at this too. My concern about these is, while they're rigid, they're PCBs
Brittle.
after all. How durable are they really going to be over time? Right.
Yeah.
Over time. I got to imagine over time that they'll share it. So what we've been looking at is we're not going to do the True Dungeon tokens. One, because that's literally like a gold coin, like a treasure coin. That makes sense for that model. We've been talking about something that's kind of akin to an isolinear chip. These aren't a bad analog in terms of just the concept, but doing something like that. And then of course I did the cards, which are very Magic the Gathering style, for the test. The conversation you and I had, Nikki, was the tokens. I mean, these have a great. These are great because they have a great poker chip feel to them. So that from a fidgety standpoint,
they're great to play with. Yeah,
you've got cool stuff. But the thing that kept coming back to me was the thing about these is if you're an avid player and you're going to a con and you're taking your stash, Nikki, how much do you take with you?
Like half a carload.
Okay.
It's a lot of pounds. We could not take it on a plane.
So that's something that has really weighed on my mind in terms of, I feel pretty strongly, I think we're going to stick with cards. They don't have the native durability, obviously, but you can sleeve them.
Sure.
And these, which are inexpensive for me to do at the scale we're talking about, are awesome. Because I could realistically, without it being overstuffed, I could put 40 cards in here, sleeved. It'll be it'll be thick, but I can do it safely. And my point is that I could have I could put 2 loadouts in one of these and have this with me at the con, and I'm done. Like my 2 best loadouts, or I could have 5 load. I mean, just for example, okay, this right here is 6 players worth. That's 60 cards and in their envelopes with a few other cards. But these aren't even filled out. These folios are really thin right now. They're not filled. But that's, if you had 6 bridge sets that got this maybe a little bit thicker, that's your worst case scenario for traveling, is what I'm getting.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And you could still potentially do NFC chips and that kind of card style if you really wanted to long term.
So that's what I was going to note, is that your core cards are going to be cards, but your vessels and officer IDs will be RFID based, and we may actually go with something like this. So there will still be cards that are RFID based for the reason of doing the login at the station and other things, but your core cards, I think we'll stick with that. What we really got from the feedback, which we'll be sharing, Jazzy's going to be editing a lot of that feedback. Like I said, we got over 12 hours of audiovisual content from MagFest. We did interviews with folks afterwards. We did literally testimonials where they sat and kind of did sessions and whatnot. It was really cool. They gave us great feedback. Everyone raved about the cards. Found 2 spelling errors, which for me, 2 spelling errors and 60 cards, I'm doing good. Right. Yeah, it was oh shoot, what was Dag, what was it? It was
that makes the cards more valuable.
It was
Canon.
Canon. It was Canon. Yeah. CANON, which is not misspelled. It's the wrong usage. So the spell check didn't catch it, and so. But like I said, for doing those cards in under a week, and the fact that there are only 2 spelling errors for this guy, I just won an award somewhere. So I was over the moon. But it's always, you can always tell the people they're going to catch it, because the one guy, the first comment was, "That's misspelled." It's like, jeez.
That's the first thing you noticed? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think I saw that spelling error on one of the cards that I received, which makes it a limited edition.
Yes.
It was actually word common only had one M on the little
reference card. On the reference card.
Yeah,
That's
on the reference card. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's flat out misspelled. So divides are well, division. Like what rare card did you get? The number will be 19 or higher. The bottom right number is 19 or higher.
The rare one in the deck. I think that was the slow charging railgun.
You got the railgun. There you go. That's a good one.
Nice.
Hey, there's gold, there's diamonds, there's the railgun, there's the Devastator, there's the fine cheese, which is that's the Magfest like super secret one.
Yeah, you'll be able to pay your docking fees now, at least.
Okay. So, but I mean, wait, Division, you played there. I've been yapping about it. Do you have any comments or thoughts about it?
I think it worked well.
I'll take that. So anyway, Nikki, I was talking about the cards and whatnot. Like I said, I think, and we have the opportunity, by the way. I thought about this: is we could do blue for in person, and they do different colors of these folios
for how you get them. Yeah, if you played a virtual.
Yeah. Well, and then you could have different color coded folios for, okay, this is my primary crew bridge. This is my secondary. You could have fun with that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yes, if I'm just buying them in a vacuum, these can be expensive, but not for if I get them at a certain volume. Plus, it's for people who are paying to play a session online or in person.
Yeah.
It's fine. And they
those
look
wallets.
Great.
Did those wallets come from the same source as the cards?
No. I mean, I don't mind. I have zero issue sharing. The wallets came from 4imprint, and they're called the Executive Wallet. And it has it's hard to see unless you're in person, but you can kind of see it has like not only does it have a texture to it, there's a slight variance in the color, and it looks really nice in person. Yeah,
very leather-esque. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got a good feel to it. It's nice, and they weren't expensive. Like I got 250 for just over $100, which yes, if I'm just buying them by themselves, that price point doesn't sound amazing. But again, the more you order, the better the price gets, obviously. So, and I've still got plenty of those. But yeah, I could easily get. I think they have like green, blue, red, gray. There's like 5 or 6 different colors that we can kind of have different ones out there for different things. And what was also cool is what we did do for the virtual sessions or the test sessions at MagFest is you got the officer card for the station you played, right? Which is more of a collectible thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I want to change is that tradition I don't mind keeping, like where people just get the card what the station they played, and if they get multiples, that's for fun, right? But the thing that and the MagFest card. Yeah, the special MagFest card. The thing that moving forward, and we have to figure out, as you know, Nikki, and those of you who don't know that haven't played True Dungeon, they do a very good job of figuring out their, not just the story arc, but the process of what they're going to release in terms of treasures, how that relates to previous treasures, how these treasures relate to the next treasures, and how that propagates new things you can get and forge and do all this other stuff.
The current big treasure is going to take 5 years to complete and make.
That's exactly my point, right? They've done an excellent job of how they've managed that. One of the twists I want to do, because we have unique stations, it's not just unique. Like in True Dungeon, you play fighter, rogue, warrior, cleric, and all the classic positions. The thing that I want to do with Horizons is you're going to play, Captain Flight, Tactical Sciences, so on and so forth. And I will give you that special card just as a collectible. But I think one of your cards in your set of 10 that you get should be explicit to your position. Meaning, there are cards of different rarities for each station, but you can only get them if you play that station. And the idea is to get them coming back, but the idea is also you're getting something of value for the station you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's just, again, a top level idea I've got. It's just a matter of how to really put that, go to the whiteboard and figure out all the math there. And I'm not trying to replicate what True Dungeon does with their 5-year plan, not to start, certainly not. But there are many lessons to be learned with how they manage that process.
Yeah, I mean, they also didn't have that to start, right? That's been a long-term change, because when they originally started, they were only producing like wooden tokens with
Right. Yeah.
stuff stamped on them. So, yeah.
Yeah. But no, overall, we're really excited, and like we'll release that footage as we make it available. Jazzy, similar to everybody, like once we got back from MadFest, most everybody crashed and just recuperated back to
Oh
life.
yeah.
And yeah, depending on your schedule, Nikki, we'll have to get you and Nick out for next year's.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try, because it seemed like a really fun time.
Well, and I will comment on this, that MagFest in recent years prior to COVID had been about 25,000 people.
Mhm.
Okay. It was only about not quite half that. It was a little shy of half that. Over 10,000 people, which is large for most cons anyway.
Yeah.
And we were still, like, I expected us not to be as busy as we were in years past. That was not the case. We booked out.
Ooh.
Right. We did have no shows. That's true. But they still, like, I was expecting us not to have sections that nobody's booked. And we know what it was. Yeah, it was the 9 o'clock hour, and the main stage concert went on at 9.
And somebody really, makes sense.
I'll have to say I was surprised at the pace of booking the time slots there. What's also interesting is that there seemed to be a relative lack of interest in the VR zone, which leads me to suspect that maybe a lot of people who normally go to the VR zone might have been going over to your booth.
Well, yeah, a number of factors. I mean, there were fewer things to do this year. We know that. Like the battle pods weren't there this year. The VR zone was expanded from years past. And my personal opinion is the VR zone has changed in nature because so many people already have it at home.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to go do that at a con when you already got it at home. I mean, in general terms. And I think that they haven't released the numbers, but the number of Oculuses that were sold and given away for Christmas were in the many, many millions.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the big gifts for Christmas.
Oh
I
no,
got
like
one.
I can tell you, like I went by like midday on Black Friday to Best Buy, and they had a wall. I mean, taller than me, a wall of Oculuses, the 128 version, just lining, and it had to be well over 1,000 units. I mean, because it basically was lining one whole section of Best Buy, like the line to check out. And the Best Buy wasn't super busy, and a part of that wall had been eaten away, but only a part of it. I was like, oh god, they're going to be stuck with these. And then I went over Christmas Eve, and they were all gone. They'd sold through them and couldn't get any more. So I mean, I was like, is this? And apparently they'd worked at like Best Buy, Target, a whole bunch of places. Oculus was ready for it, and threw them all tons of units, and they're all gone.
I mean, I think part of that also timed in with Omicron getting super big and people realizing, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to leave home again, type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, VR is not you can only experience this if you go to a VR place anymore. It is, you can experience this from your couch and get the exact same feeling and vibe that you would get if you went to a VR or gaming cafe.
Right.
Time check.
Yes, it's
getting even further in that direction. Now there's one game, Space Pirate Trainer, if you're familiar with it, has an arena mode now. So if you have access to a 10 meter by 10 meter space and friends with a Quest, you can play in an arena with your friends.
Yeah.
I haven't tested it yet, but it's pretty awesome.
Well, Taggart, we need to get you on some games because there's a bunch of us that play Catan and Walkabout constantly.
Yeah, I know. I would love to. It's a matter of scheduling, but yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, for like we play late for us, which is like 10:30. That's past Team Miser's bedtime. Or we drag his butt in to play a few. But for you, so that'd be like 7:30, 8 o'clock ish.
Yeah, that might work.
I'll ping you next time. Like we might even play later tonight. I don't know. I've had weeks where I've played every night something. The most common two are Walkabout and Oculus. But Space Pirate Trainer, the arena mode, I've only tried it once. I would love to try it with several people. I don't have 10 by 10 meter, but I've got my family room. I've got a decent size. I can't get that big, but I can.
Yeah, it's obviously an experimental sort of thing because it doesn't work. It has to be 10 meters by 10 meters. Like the gym at our church is almost big enough. They have like these accordion door dividers to divide it up into multiple spaces. And so those stick in just a little bit, but it's really close. And that's where I went and tried it out by myself. So I didn't have other people there, but I was able to get it to do the arena, and I was kind of going against bots, and it was an interesting thing.
So, we did, everybody brought their Oculuses, and then a few of us did it. Like Fred turned on his Oculus at MagFest, and we played, I think we played Walkabout. I think that's right. But we did it in the ballroom where the deluxe bridge was. So we had, like, the middle of that ballroom was wide open. So we had plenty of room, and I didn't think about it. We should have done arena there. That's our mistake. We had plenty of room for that.
Yeah.
Because we had, in both rooms, we could have set up 4 people easily with their own.
And we missed you giving me a referral.
Yeah, well, that's all right.
Yeah.
Is it giving you a referral? I don't know which way that works. Maybe we still can. I don't know. But
no,
I don't
know once I logged in my account, it wouldn't let you do it anymore.
So, excuse me. So it's good stuff. All right, so we're at 8 o'clock. Any final thoughts or topics? I want to be sensitive to everybody's evening so they can get back to doing whatever. And of course, we'll be doing open bridges tomorrow night. I think. How did the testing go for that? I'll ask you real quick. Seems okay. Okay. And then tentatively, I think HemaCast is offering open bridges at 2 o'clock on Saturday. And this is Eastern times, but 2 o'clock on Saturday is upcoming, and whatnot. Yep. So, and I think some of us are getting hit with another winter storm on the East Coast. Oh, nice.
How much snow did you guys get?
Here we didn't get nothing for that first storm. The second one, we're supposed to get snow Thursday, snow Friday, snow Saturday morning, and Friday alone is 7 inches. Now, for my area, that's extensive because I live down in the Hampton Roads area, down by the water. And usually down by the water, we can get snow, but it's not like going inland where Fred is, like into Richmond, like an hour west.
Yeah, that storm's just supposed to be really cold for us, but we're not getting any snow from that one, where we just got like 4 inches from the last storm.
But yeah, we have. Oh yeah, because you were right in the middle of that one. But yeah, this one looks like it's going to hit us pretty darn hard. At least right now, it's planning to. So we'll see what happens. But all right. But hey, awesome night, everybody. 2 hours. Rock on. Everybody have a great evening. And if we don't see you tomorrow night, we'll see you next Tuesday. Everybody have a great week.
See ya.
Yep. Thanks.
Ciao.